Well, guys, it is now time for my Week 15 picks in the 2022 NFL season, as I went down a little early, as last week, 6 and 7. Jeez, this is my second losing season this week. I wonder if that ties or sets a record for the most losing season I had in a year. After going 14-0-1 last week, all the momentum I gained just shed it out just like that. So anyways, here is the current regular season playoff standings at the season end of the day. In the AFC, it's the Bills with the bye, with Patriots and Chiefs, Dolphins and Ravens, and Bengals and Titans. And the NFC, it's the Eagles with the bye, with Giants and Vikings, Commanders at 49ers, and Cowboys at Buccaneers. And my Super Bowl pick remains still the Bills over the Eagles. Alright, so now, let's get to my Week 15 picks, as we start with a big one tonight in the NFC West, as it's the 49ers at the Seahawks. The 49ers won the last one. The Seahawks haven't beaten them since 2021, and the 49ers haven't won in Lumen Field since 2019. And also, if the 49ers win this game, they will clinch a playoff spot for a second year in a row, and the NFC West for the first time since 2019. Win tonight, and they become the second team in the league to get into the playoffs, and the first one to clinch a division. So the 49ers, oh my goodness, they crushed the Buccaneers, and what was it, Kyle Prudy? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, as he was the third string, but he's played really good these last two games they filled in with. So now it looks like the 49ers are offensively starting to stay right back on track with how they were, as long as he keeps playing like this. If he keeps playing like this, the 49ers really are a scary team in the NFC to make it back to the Super Bowl after all these years. Meanwhile, the Seahawks got honestly kind of spanked by the Panthers, even though the score was close. Man, they were 6-3, remember, a few weeks ago. Now they're 7-6 and missing out on the playoffs. So this would be pretty bad for them if they can't win this game here and lose their chance to win the NFC West. So it's not looking good for them. But 49ers defense is so elite, and now their offense is starting to play a little bit better, especially with the Seahawks' terrible defense. So I'm going to have to pick the 49ers for this one. And then we get to our Saturday games coming up. First time we're having it this season, as we start off with the Colts at the Vikings for the first time since 2016. The Colts won the last 6. The Vikings haven't beaten them since 1997. As the Colts, of course, came off their bye when they got destroyed by the Cowboys. That was more of just the Colts just straight up implode in the fourth quarter. You don't just allow 33 points just like that because you're bad and the Cowboys are good. That was just a complete implosion. And remember, the game was close going to the fourth quarter. Colts were only down 2 points. So, should not underestimate them. Meanwhile, the Vikings lost to the Lions, and of course, if the Vikings win this or the Lions lose, they will clinch a playoff spot and the NFC North for the first time since 2017. And their first playoff spot since 2019. And of course, the Colts are trying to avoid their first losing season since 2019. And if they lose this, combined with a Chargers, Patriots, or Jets win, if two of those, no, actually just one, if they lose and one of those 3 teams win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs, especially the Patriots since they have the tiebreaker over them. So the Colts should not be underestimated, and the Vikings really are not that impressive for a 10-3 team. It could be definitely very close, but right now I'm probably going to have to still pick the Vikings for this one, but I won't be surprised if the Colts get it. And then we get to an AFC North matchup afterwards, as the Ravens are at the Browns. The Ravens won the last one. The Browns haven't beaten them since 2021, and the Ravens haven't won in Cleveland since 2020, as the Browns try to avoid their second straight losing season. And if they lose, and the Jets and Patriots and Chargers, if they lose and either one of those 3 teams wins because they have the tiebreaker over the Browns, they will be eliminated. And then for the Ravens, even though everywhere I looked up says this is not possible this week, from the math and the playoff scenarios and tiebreakers that I know of off the top of my head, if the Ravens win and the Patriots and Jets lose, they should be in the playoffs, actually. All they need is a win and the Jets and Patriots loss, and they should be in the playoffs because they have the tiebreaker over them. So I don't know why everyone else saying that's not possible this week when all my stuff says, yeah, that is possible. I even did a thing on Playoff Simulator, with Playoff Predictors, and it gave the worst case scenario for the Ravens the rest of the year, and they still would be in the playoffs, so I don't know why no one else is saying what I'm seeing says they are in the playoffs if they win and the Jets and Patriots lose, so I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. So, the Ravens, of course, barely beat the Steelers to get their first win season since 2020. Meanwhile, the Browns got the stuff kicked out of them by the Bengals. I guess I'm not really too surprised, as this could be a very interesting game, because when the Ravens visit the Browns are actually pretty competitive against them. And this could be a possible upset, but I'm actually going to pick the Browns for this one. Not fully trusting the Ravens, especially even when they struggle against just as bad Steelers team, remember. And then we get to the Saturday night game. It's a huge AFC East matchup, as it's the Dolphins at the Bills. Bills won the last one. No, Dolphins won the last one. The Bills haven't beaten them since 2021. The Dolphins haven't won in Buffalo since 2016. And the Dolphins are trying to get their first straight win season. Now, the Bills, if they win this, they will clinch a playoff spot for the 4th year in a row. So it's very important for them. As the Dolphins, now they've lost to the Chargers. Now they've lost 2 in a row. Now they're not looking as hot now. As now they got to visit the Bills, who just beat the Jets in a pretty close game too. That was a defensive slugfest. But the history's on the Bills' side here, so I'm going to pick the Bills for this. Alright, so then we get to the Sunday games, as it starts off with the Falcons at the Saints, as the Saints won the last 2. The Falcons haven't beaten them since 2021. The Saints haven't won at home since 2019, as the Falcons try to avoid their 5th straight losing season. And the Saints, if they lose and the Buccaneers win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. As the Falcons, however, still will be in it for right now, no matter what. So, the Falcons lost, was it to the, no, it could have been the Steelers, right? Or was that another week? I can't remember who they lost to, or maybe they were on their bye, I just don't remember. Meanwhile, the Saints came off their bye when they lost to the Buccaneers, I believe it was last time, as it's not looking good for them at all right now, as they're on the verge of being eliminated, and these teams have been all over the place this season. Like, they look terrible, but then all of a sudden they win it. And the Falcons the last 3 years have a winning record against the Saints when they visit them. So this game could go either way. But I think Mariota is out for the season, so there goes that plans, for them at least. So right now I think I'm going to have to pick the Saints, but I won't be surprised if the Falcons pull it off, because the history's on their side too in that regard. Alright, then it's the Steelers at the Panthers. For the first time since 2014, Steelers won the last 6. The Panthers haven't beaten them since their very first game against them in 1996. As the Steelers try to avoid their first losing season since 2003, and the Panthers trying to avoid their 5th straight losing season. So Steelers, if they lose and the Patriots and Jets win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs. And the Panthers will still be in no matter what. So the Steelers had a hard-fought struggle against the Ravens, but just couldn't win it, as Pickens got knocked out as well. Meanwhile, the Panthers had a very impressive game against the Seahawks to get the win, to match their win total from last year. Maybe this will finally be the year after 4 years they get over 5 wins. I'm not so sure about that one. And I really don't trust either team in this regard, but I'm going to have to pick the Steelers. I don't really trust the Panthers. But who knows, maybe the Panthers will get it. Alright, and after that, it's the Eagles at the Bears for the first time since 2016. The Eagles, won the last 4. The Bears haven't beaten them since 2011, and they haven't won at home against the Eagles since 2010. So the Eagles crushed the Giants last week, as they're now the first team in the playoffs, remember, but no division or first round bye clinching yet this week, no matter what. Meanwhile, the Bears, they played good against the Packers, but just couldn't pull it off in the end. This could be a trap game for the Eagles, though. They shouldn't underestimate the Bears, but I'm going to pick the Eagles still for this one. And then we get to probably the most lopsided game of the season so far, as it's the Chiefs at the Texans for the first time since 2017. As the Chiefs won the last one, the Texans haven't beaten them since 2019, and they haven't won at home since 2016. The Chiefs, if they win and the Chargers lose, they will clinch the playoff spot for the 10th year in a row, and they'll clinch the AFC West for the 7th year in a row. So a lot on the line in that regard. So of course the Chiefs, oh man, that was a crazy game. First you were destroying the Broncos 27-0. Then Mahomes decided to take a giant shit on the field and played horrible to let the Broncos come back and almost pull off the victory, but they held on the end barely. When Russell Wilson outplayed you in a game, that's pretty bad right now. But yeah, the Chiefs still won in the end. Meanwhile, the Texans, they actually put up a hard-fought fight against the Cowboys, but they couldn't win in the end. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs for this one, unless Mahomes plays like shit in this game. Speaking of the Cowboys, that's our next game, as they are at the Jaguars for the first time since 2014. The Cowboys won the last two. Jaguars haven't beaten them since 2010. They haven't won at home against them since 2006. This is the first time, too, they're in Jacksonville since last time's game in 2014 was in London. So the Cowboys, if they win this, or, no. If they win this, and I think if the Giants lose, or if the Giants lose, I mean to say, and the Seahawks possibly too, they'll be in the playoffs for a second year in a row. But if they win, they're definitely in. As the Cowboys, you beat the Texans, but that was barely. You barely beat the worst team in the league record-wise, and possibly the worst team in the league in terms of stats. That was just a horrible game. Meanwhile, the Jaguars completely humiliated the Titans, as they're still in the playoff race even if they lose. So they're hanging in there right now. They're still in contention, and honestly, they might be the best team in the AFC South right now. They would have had to win out, though, and the Titans had to completely collapse and maybe make a playoff spot still. But I'm going to pick the Cowboys for this one. But hey, if the Texans almost beat you, what makes you think the Jaguars couldn't? So you got to watch out for that, maybe. All right, then it's the Lions. This is a big one, too, in the outer conference, as it's the Lions at the Jets for the first time since 2014. The Jets won the last 5. The Lions haven't beaten them since 2000, as the Lions are trying to get back over at 500 for the first time since week 2, and the Jets are trying to stay above 500. So the Lions beat the Vikings, and how about that? After going 1-6, they've now gone 5-1 since, and they're right still there in the mix for the playoff spot. They're not eliminated yet. Same goes for the Jets. They lost a tough one to the Bills, as unfortunately Mike White almost got killed pretty much in that game, so I have no idea if he's going to be playing or not. So it's going to be a battle between one of the best offenses in the league with one of the worst defenses in the league, going up against one of the best defenses in the league with an offense that's still kind of bad, but it's gotten a little bit more mediocre lately. So it's going to come down to who do you trust more? And right now, the Lions offense is definitely something to be scary. You got to watch out for them, Jets defense. But I think I still trust the Jets more because I don't trust the Lions defense whatsoever. I don't think the Lions offense might be enough to beat their defense. But don't be surprised if the Lions pull it off. Then we get to the 4 p.m. games, as it's the Cardinals at the Broncos for the first time since 2014. The Broncos won the last 2. Cardinals haven't beaten them since 2010, and they've never won in Denver. Hoping to try and make that happen this time around. And the Cardinals, if they lose, or the Seahawks and either the Giants or Commanders win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs for the first time since 2020. So, of course, the Cardinals, they at first played good against the Patriots, but then they got throttled at the end. And, of course, Kyler Murray suffered a season-ending injury. So there goes probably any chance for the Cardinals to make a season comeback out of this. Meanwhile, the Broncos, for the first time really this season, Russell Wilson played really good. He outplayed Mahomes, and they almost beat him, but the defense completely shit the bed when they needed it the most. You get 3 interceptions, but you still can't stop Mahomes enough to get 34 points. Definitely not looking good in that regard. But the Cardinals right now are looking horrible, so I actually might pick the Broncos for this one. Let's see if maybe that game that Wilson had was just a fluke, or maybe is he finally coming back to his original form. And then we get to the original game that was on Sunday night before it got flexed out, as it's the Patriots at the Raiders for the first time since 2017. As the Patriots won the last 6, the Raiders haven't beaten them since 2002. And the Raiders are trying to avoid their first losing season since 2019. And if they lose, they might possibly be out of the playoffs, depending on the tiebreaker scenario with the Dolphins. Because they can't beat the Chiefs anymore to get the division. They can't beat the Bengals due to better record. If they lose this, they can't beat the Patriots because of the tiebreaker. And then the only thing left is the Dolphins. So they could possibly be eliminated, but I'm not sure yet. Meanwhile, the Patriots spanked the Cardinals to get back over 500. Meanwhile, the Raiders, oh man, you were spanking the Rams, but then you choked near the end of the game. Very disappointed after your 3-game winning streak, as that's been a trend for the Raiders, choking away fourth quarter leads. So this could be a very interesting game, but I think I trust the Patriots more, so I'm going to pick them. Then we get to an AFC matchup, as it's the Titans at the Chargers for the first time since 2018. Remember, that was in London as well. as the Titans won the last one. The Chargers haven't beaten them since 2018, and the Titans have not won on the road against the Chargers since 1990. Back when the Chargers were in San Diego, the Titans were the Oilers. So the Titans, oh man, they've now lost 3 in a row, and they got their shit kicked in by the Jaguars of all teams. They are definitely reeling very hard right now. Meanwhile, the Chargers got a needed victory over the Dolphins to get back over 500, as they're still keeping their playoff hopes barely alive, as they're just barely hanging on. And I trust them more than I do the Titans right now, so I'm going to pick the Chargers for this one. And then we get to an outer conference matchup, as it's the Bengals at the Buccaneers for the first time since 2014. As the Bengals won the last 2, the Buccaneers haven't beaten them since 2010. As the Bengals beat the Browns, as they now won, 5 in a row now, as they're trying to match their win total from last year. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers got their absolute shit kicked in by the 49ers, playing horrible in that game, as they're just barely hanging on in the very terrible NFC South, as nothing's looking really good for them whatsoever. So, yeah, I'm going to pick the Bengals for this one, but I guess I won't be surprised if the Buccaneers pull it off and stay at 500. Alright, then we get to the game that was flexed in, as it's the Giants at the Commanders, as neither team won since the last time they played 2 weeks ago was a tie. Giants last beat the Commanders in D.C. and Landover in 2020, as the Giants trying to get their first non-losing season since 2016, and same goes for the Commanders, first non-losing season since 2016. As this game is huge, as this will get whoever wins the 6th seed guarantee at the moment for the playoffs, with the loser, depending on what happens with the Seahawks, still maybe being in or being out for the moment. So the Giants, yep, all their momentum is pretty much gone with, as I figured throughout most of the year, because I didn't fully 100% trust them, as they've now gone from 7-2 to 7-5-1, as not looking good when they got destroyed by the Eagles. Meanwhile, the Commanders were on their bye. This is the first time they played since that tie against the Giants. Hard-fought game, and this is going to be very important for both of them to get into the playoffs possibly. But I'm going to pick the Commanders for this one, as lately now their defense has actually been playing much better than the Giants. Crazy how that's been. And then finally get to Monday night, the game that's been overrated from last year, and it's overrated this year, especially how they're playing, as it's the Rams at the Packers for the 2nd year in a row. Packers won the last one, the Rams haven't beaten them since 2018, and they haven't won in Lambeau since 2006, as the Packers try to avoid their first losing season since 2018. And the Rams, if they lose, combined with a Seahawks win, they will be eliminated from the playoffs, as that'll be the first team eliminated from the playoffs as the defending champs since the 2016 Broncos, I believe. So the Rams need this win, and they got a big one last week when they beat the Raiders barely to salvage their season, but it's not looking good in that regard. Meanwhile, the Packers beat the Bears last week as they're trying to salvage their playoff chances. They're still in right now, but it's not looking good for either team. But the Rams are in a really worse shape, so I'm picking the Packers to get this one. So those are my picks for Week 15. I cannot wait for 49ers and Seahawks tonight. That's going to be insane. And we could possibly have 49ers, Vikings, Cowboys, Chiefs, should be Ravens, and Bills making the playoffs this week. 7 teams out of 14 could possibly get in. Alright, so my picks for Week 15, remember, are the 49ers over the Seahawks, Vikings over the Colts, Browns over the Ravens, Bills over the Dolphins, Saints over the Falcons, Steelers over the Panthers, Eagles over the Bears, Chiefs over the Texans, Cowboys over the Jaguars, Jets over the Lions, Broncos over the Cardinals, Patriots over the Raiders, Chargers over the Titans, Bengals over the Buccaneers, Commanders over the Giants, and Packers over the Rams. So, see you guys next time for Week 16.